I expect, well, what would be the collective noun for nerds? I mean, a quantum of nerds, a dungeon of nerds, a starship of nerds, because we get, up at the Chase Bank Auditorium in downtown Chicago, we get often we get groups of University of Chicago students. We get like a smattering of Northwestern students. Every now and then a Loyola student who's dragged there by his mother or his girlfriend, but we get busloads. They actually take field trips to us, because the University of Chicago, I mean, this whole place is like an incubator for NPR listeners. You know that scene in the movie Alien, when they walk in, all these eggs and these monsters pop out? That's what these seats will be like, except instead of monsters, it'll be like someday middle-aged consultants who really listen to NPR. I mean, these are our people, we're getting them young. You know, it's funny, it's almost impossible to remember this, even though I was there. But for the first 7 years of our program, we did most of our shows in a studio with no audience. And we would only do live shows like this as special events. And whenever we did, we were like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. There are people who will make noises indicating amusement. That's a pleasure if you're trying to be funny. In 2005, we started doing it every week, either here in Chicago at the Chase Auditorium or on the road in the theater like this. And it's awesome. And it's particularly fun when we go outside our home theater, because people are very glad we visited. Sometimes when we go out to far-flung cities, we're like, you know, emissaries from the home planet, you know, and they're like, oh, you've brought a sucker from NPR headquarters. It's nice. We've played the Nokia Theater in LA, the place where they have the Grammys, as they did recently. We were on that stage. They had those big, huge high-def screens that usually show Beyonce or whatever. I mean, I think they wanted to go on strike, the screens themselves. This summer we're playing Red Rocks outside of Denver. I mean, this is crazy. But more than that, more than just the venues, as impressive as they are, it's just the fun of like meeting our fans. I mean, one of the weird things about radio is you can hear us, we can't hear you, and we can't see you. I think they're working on technology now that allows us to. But until then, we have this tremendous privilege of going around the country and actually meeting our listeners, who are really great people, if a little dorky. Gosh, there was this one guy, Axelrod, I think his name was. We had him on in Washington. Absolute jerk. No, actually, David was, Axe was actually very funny and actually caused a little kerfuffle this is at the beginning of the Obama administration, and he came on and made a little joke about I think she was the California beauty contestant who said something about, she was for opposite-sex marriage and against same-sex marriage, and David made a joke about that. That got him in trouble with the usual suspects. We've had amazing people on our show, everybody from President Obama when he was a senator, to President Clinton after he was a president, to Nobel Prize winners. You know, we had the only interview, I'm thinking of Chicago experiences, that Patrick Fitzgerald, the special prosecutor who prosecuted Scooter Libby, ever gave, pretty much about the whole thing. As he said to me, I can answer your questions, I can't answer anybody else's. We've had a lot of the heroes from my childhood. Leonard Nimoy, I was a big Trek nerd growing up. Carrie Fisher, I don't need to explain why. And Dick Van Dyke, I got to talk to Dick Van Dyke, and he's just awesome. So it's just been great. We've really just had an amazing time. And one of the nice things I think about what we do, because a lot of these people do a lot of media, is we often put them in a different light. We don't ask them about the usual things. So to take a random example, Melinda Gates was on our show. And instead of asking her questions about the good philanthropic work she does around the world with the Gates Foundation, we asked what it was like to be asked out by a billionaire who's your boss. And I think that's important for the public to know. The staff you see behind me, they're the staff of the show, and we work very hard and write a script that has jokes, that has questions, that has answers. But I think where our show stands out from the other people who do this, be they Jimmy Fallon or Stephen Colbert or Jon Stewart or any of the other guys, is that we improv, in that we ask questions to our panelists who don't know what questions we're going to ask. They don't know what they're going to say until they say it. A lot of my response or Carl's response is always off the cuff. And our show has a real sort of happening in the moment feel that gives it, I think, a certain pleasure. I mean, it's happening right now. Yes, we've prepared, but we kind of prepare to be unprepared.